So what I'll do first is I want to mention the layout because when I did episode 1, 2.0 had not been released yet. So let me switch over to the right panel here. This is called the right layer panel. For those of you who may be here who are new and aren't recognizing or have just logged in and they've noticed that there's been a change, just want to notice that things have moved over a lot into the right panel here, but I've got a series of object layers. Those are identified by this little tiny little tower right here. That's to let you know this is an object layer. Notice that I have 3 of them. I have one for lighting, one for darkness, which is where my shadows are at. I have another for objects. That's where all the objects that you see on the map besides the light stamps will be on this layer. And then you also have that foreground layer, which is made from the mask tool, that add mode to the mask tool. And then there's the background, which is this background black color right here. So now you know the layout of the map. I'm going to switch over to objects. Now, whenever I'm working on a room, what I'll try to do is I'll assign a specific thing to each room. And there's a whole different bunch of themes that you can do to a chamber or a room. For instance, you could have a puzzle chamber, a trap room, maybe an encounter room of some kind, like a mini boss, or maybe just a regular encounter with guards and a guard room, or maybe it might be the ending boss. So those kind of rooms. There's also rooms that are more like a maze in which you have to navigate through all of these different walls to try to find your way to the end of that room. So what we should do is we should assign each room a type of theme so that way we know how to populate it, right? So I'll go ahead and take my text, and what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and create another object layer just so you can see me doing it. Add a layer, and I'll go object layer, and then right away it'll have you be able to change it. I'll just call it text. And now I have this text layer that will be above the objects. I'll put it above everything. I'll put it above the darkness as well. So because the darkness is where my shadows are. So I'll have it above that so I can see it. And then I'll go ahead and just label each room so that I have it. So I'll call this one entrance. Right here. A really great room to add is like a storage room. And I use storage rooms for encounters. Maybe there's something important that your players might need to find there. Maybe the storage room is where an NPC is. Maybe that's where an important object or a lever is to open something. You can totally delete the layer. Absolutely. You just right click on the layer and you'll notice all the options here. And you can click and hold a layer and you can drag it anywhere you want. Or you can even put a group. You can even move objects from one group to another group. So if I have all these objects here, let me open this up. I can maybe select these right here, right click. And I do believe you'll be able to move these to a layer right here. You see my object layers. You can only move them to an object layer, but you can move to a layer. So if you want to, so that way you don't have to copy paste. You just go to move layer and it'll move it right to that layer. So that's helpful. Let's keep labeling each room. So put a storage room there. Let's put like you notice that the walls of this room are more natural. They have like some curvy edges. It looks like they're broken up a little bit. So then why don't we create something more natural, like a cave and stalactites, stalagmites. So let's maybe have this be a cave of some kind. And in fact, maybe giant spiders come out of this cave right here, out of this hole, and they kind of crawl their way into this main chamber here, which we're going to want to give that a name as well. We'll call this main room maybe the vestibule. And then there's these other rooms that are in here. This right here is the exit right here. So let's label that. Once you have each room kind of labeled, then you can kind of get to the next part of starting to populate everything. Let's make this the boss room right here. It's nice and large. It's open. Players can move around to these different spaces if they want to. So let's make this a boss room. Hey, Becca, glad that you're here. A boss room, a cave, and then we want to do each one of these rooms here. Let's maybe have another storage room here, or you could make it a, let's see here. Let's maybe make it a wine cellar. I think that might be, oops, did I spell cellar wrong? Probably. We got a wine cellar there. Let's put another storage room right here, and then this other room right here can be maybe, this could be like a room where you find like a library, or maybe where there's an archivist. So like archives. Let's do that. Archives there. Okay, that looks good. Now what's really nice is I can go ahead and just take this and I can just do that little eyeball and I can turn my text on and off. Oh, weapons. I like that idea. Let's stick with that. Good call, by the way. Yeah, thanks. If people have suggestions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Don't be shy, okay? I'm always open to suggestion, trust me. I have no issue with that whatsoever. There's a little mini room right here, but I don't think I'm going to make that a room. That'll just be like a broken, collapsed wall. So I think that looks good, but we have weapons here. I think I like that. Exit. We've done each room. I think everything looks good. Yeah, here's the vestibule, the cave. Great. Okay. So now that I have that, now I can go and choose which room I want to go to. Normally, I would start at the entrance and move my way towards the exit, but sometimes you don't really know. Maybe you don't have an idea for the next room after the entrance. Go to a room where you already have a general idea on what you want it to look like. For instance, the cave one sounds interesting to me. I kind of like that. It's more of a natural space, while the other ones are rooms that are more built by some kind of species that lives under the ground or whoever built this place. So I'll start with that more natural like cave over there. So I'll go ahead and turn that text off by simply just turning the little eyeball on and off. And I'll go into that catalog. And there should be stalactites, I think. Here we are right here. This looks good. And I want to make sure that I put it on the object layer. Remember, I was on the text layer. So I'll move back to the object layer. And I'll just go ahead and place one and just see what it looks like. I think I want to make some adjustments to it. So I'm going to go click this little tweak color icon right here. I'm going to bring the brightness down, bring the saturation down, bring the brightness down a little more. There we go. I think that should work out a little better. And then I can go ahead and place these behind here, and I'll place these stalactites or stalagmites. I'll place these to create like a wall in the background here. So this will create like a little natural wall here. I'll go ahead and place a couple of these. Place some, yeah, it's a little too much. I want to save, don't want to block the view of the players. So I wouldn't put any like this. You would put it on the back wall. Always remember, don't place things in front of where players can move unless you're planning on cutting them like this. So just kind of keep that in mind. Isometric is easy to put together if you know some of the tricks about just don't block the player's movement. That's going to be important. Let's go ahead and also maybe take a cave of some kind. I kind of like it facing, let's maybe just go through the various ones and see which one I like best. I kind of like it facing this way because it's facing towards this direction here. And I'll make it fairly large. And just so that it matches with the texture beneath it, I might decide to change the texture because this is a more natural section of the map instead of this more brick-like section where you have more human-made or whatever species made this place. What I should do is maybe use a more natural texture as well, right? So I can go in here and kind of pick, like I like this beige sand ground, like the way that looks, but I don't like the color. So I can always play with the color. Go to tweak colors, maybe desaturate it, maybe bring the brightness down a little bit, mess with the scale. And then I make sure my foreground layer is selected. And what I'll also do is we'll switch over to a different type of brush. Because I'm making more dirt, more gravel-like ground, let's maybe switch to a brush called dirt. That kind of makes sense. Now for this main section, I'll just go ahead and paint this whole area that color. For starters, it's a little on the bright side. Yeah, it's a little bright. So let's tweak it a little bit more. Let's bring the saturation up and bring the brightness down. And then I'll apply it again real quick to see what it looks like. There we go. That looks a little better. And then I'll go ahead and bring the opacity down. And I'll just start blending my texture a little bit this way. So it kind of blends in with that unnatural ground right there. And the way that I'll do it is wherever you see a broken... wherever you see like the more edgy brush sections, paint that gray in. right? Instead, because the brick would start to break, buckle, and kind of move away a little bit. Maybe there was some erosion there. So just where those sections are, I'll just kind of paint that in. That makes sense. Now I have some transition between the two textures. Then I'll select it, change the blend mode to luminosity. That way it kind of keeps the same kind of texture. And then I can mess around with like brightness, mess around with contrast a little bit. And I think I'll do the same thing with these. I'll select all of these and I'll bring the saturation down a little bit. There we go. Just to get it kind of all to match. There we go. Let's bring the size up a little bit. And then I think what I'll do is I'll put a spider down just to give myself a sense of scale. There we go. And you don't have to add spiders into your map. Obviously, those would be like a token that we'd use in your VTT or on your tabletop, whatever it might be. So I'll make sure just to use this little creature technically as kind of just a scale guide to kind of help me out. Like, okay, can a spider fit outside of that piece? Like, can a spider fit out of that? Yeah, they can, right? That seems to fit fairly well. So that's about the right size. That sounds good. I'll just kind of put that there for now. So I kind of have that set up. But what I don't have right now also is not a lot of transition between these stamps and the ground. There's still, it seems a little, I don't know, doesn't look entirely right yet. So why don't we use like an alpha texture or what's called an overlay? If you go into the catalog and just type overlay into the search bar, it'll give you all of these transparent backgrounds with the artifacts. I'm going to go ahead and go to Fantasy Battle Maps, and I'm going to switch to a different texture. I think I'll use cracked ground for this. So let's go to cracked like this, and you can kind of pick a cracked ground texture that you want. I'll change that brush size. I'm going to change the texture scale. That looks good. And then I'm just going to apply that kind of cracked ground texture all along here. And then just where, even along the edge here, because that's where it's kind of like broken up a little bit. So all along this edge, I'll put in that cracked ground. And you'll notice now that it all seems to kind of blend together. The line work from the cracked ground blends with the line work from the stalactites, as well as the line work from that cave right there. And of course, I'm also doing the same thing over on this edge right here. And you'll see that line work seems to blend well with that edgy brush that we used here. So that works out quite rather well. I think overall this looks pretty good. What I'll do is I'll just try to populate the room with the biggest stamps that I have first, and then I'll come back and detail later. This way I don't feel like I feel like I'm taking too long in one room. This way of doing things might be different for you than for me. If some people like to just work for one room, finish it to the bitter end, all the way done, they won't finish until it's perfect, and then they'll move on to the next room. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Me personally, whenever I work on a room too long, I feel I begin to lose a little bit of interest in it. And so to keep myself from losing interest from working on the map, I'll move over to the next room. Especially if I've already put a bunch of big things in that room. And the reason why you want to throw in big stamps first is because a couple things. One, it's room for your play. You need to know if there's room for your players to move around. So the largest stamp first is going to help you with foot traffic or the where players can move around. It's also going to fill up more of that room space. It's going to make you feel like you're getting more done. And so then when you look at each room, you're like, great, I'm making some progress, a little bit of encouragement there, right? So moving from room to room, start with big stamps first, and you can always come back to it. You know how it is. Sometimes you just have a rando revelation. You're like working on something, you're like, oh, I like this. I'll go back to the other room and add that element as well. So it's okay if you decide to just jump around or decide to dedicate to just one room until the end or somewhere in between. It's really about personal choice, right? Okay, so once I've kind of added that stuff, then I think I'll add just a couple more. Like I have some cracked ground right here as well. So I think I'll just kind of create some more of the back wall right here. And in fact, what I think I'll do is I'll favorite this stamp just so that, oh, it's already in my there, but I'll favorite it just in case. There it is in my favorites. If you're not sure how to do favorites, you just select a stamp and then click the star, and then it will show up in your favorites over here, okay? Just kind of a heads up. All right, I'm just going to keep kind of adding a bunch of stamps here along this edge just to kind of create this back wall, make it a little bit more interesting. It's okay to shift it in a little bit more this way. I'll put one there as well. Make it a little bit smaller. There we go. That looks good. So now I have kind of this. Oh, there's another one right here. Let's do that as well. Let's just try to create as much of this back wall as possible. In fact, I can even put one here as well. Let's take that up a layer. There we go. That looks good. I'm just trying just some continuity, right? I want to stick with wherever I have that. There we go. So now I have this nice kind of stalactites that act as a backdrop. It's a back wall. Now it won't look like your players are just walking up against just black space. So that works out rather well. I think I've got most of the details or most of the big stamps in this room. I probably can put a couple things over here. Like I could put like a pit of some kind. I could put that in as well, or maybe I can save that for another section. Let me just take a step back and look at it. You know, I think I'm okay with this room. Let's go ahead and turn on my text. There's the cave. There's the wine cellar, the vestibule. Let's go work on the storage room. It's a small room, so we should be able to work on that one to the very end. Why don't we do that? Since we've done one way, let's go do the other way. What it would look like if I worked on a room from the very beginning to the end, minus shadows and lighting and stuff. So let's just go over to there. I'll go ahead and turn text off. First, I would start by making the back walls that are right here, these back walls. I would approach that by what I did in the first stream, which was by taking broken walls and just placing them right up against here like this. So I have like these walls here, and I'm just going to use this as a backdrop. Like this. I'll go ahead and add another one. Let's go with, let's see if I have another one that's a bit different. That one looks good. Okay. That looks good. Okay. Just want to make sure that I got these facing the right way. That looks good. Okay. So we have that back wall there. Then the next step I would do is I would use, I don't want to show the tops of these walls right here. I want it to make it look like it's black. It could be a treasure room too if people prefer. Okay, let me go over to my shapes. I've got this shape right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stroke and just use a black fill. I'll put a sub layer above layer 3. I'm going to use my pen. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide the sections, the cutoffs right here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. What I normally do is just follow the contours of the wall. So notice how I'm following the contour of the wall like this. Making my way here, filling this part here. Remember, don't worry about making it perfect. Just get it fairly accurate, right? Just go here, kind of cut this off, go here like this. This looks good. We'll go up there like this. But just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Let's do this, follow this. And then the last part right here like this. Don't want to accidentally hit that, so I'll put that there. There we go. And then just go to add. And then when I take a step back, you'll notice that I've cut off the tops of the walls, and now it doesn't look like there's a top to the wall. It just looks like there's a wall part, the face part instead of the top part. And that will make it look a little more interesting. It's the same technique that I did for this entrance room here and this wall here. So you get the general idea on how I put it together, right? Pretty easy stuff. So then from right there, I might want to consider just selecting all of those and just create group and call it back wall. You don't have to do all of this stuff. I know some people have different methods on how they approach, how they group things. Sometimes everything's just a disaster and they have everything all over the place. They have to scroll everywhere. Some people will work very efficiently. They might work with they might have every layer labeled and in an order. It's up to you on which way you want to go and do it. I know not everyone does it the same way. And me, sometimes my maps are a bloody mess where they're all over the place, and other maps I'm very structured. It just kind of depends on my overall mood and how much time that I have to work on a map, all those kind of things. I'm also kind of noticing here that I kind of put this wall a little off right here. If that's a little kind of inconsistency, a mistake that I made there, easy to fix that mistake. I'll just take a rock like this, I'll scale it up to where it's about the same thickness as the rocks that are at the base there. I'll desaturate it, bring the brightness down, make it to about the same brightness, and then I can just go ahead and select those rocks and just hide that inconsistency like this. So if you ever have like an inconsistency or anything like that, put those rocks. Another place that might look good to put rocks is wherever there's a broken part of the wall, like right here. So let's just take a bunch of these rocks and make it look like that wall part up there collapsed and fell down right there. There's some pieces here, so why don't we place some there? I see some collapse right here, so let's put some there. There's a little collapse there, so let's put it there. There we go. And now it kind of looks like it explains where some of the wall, why it's cut up like that. Some of the debris fell off the wall and fell on the ground. What we should also do is maybe change the scale. So some are big and some are small. So some are smaller, some are bigger. If they're all the same size, then it looks a little unnatural. So we'll maybe change the scale, make things a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. I think that looks good. That one's a little bit smaller. Let's do that. That looks good. We can also use textures to show a little bit more debris, because whenever I'm doing debris or something natural, I like to have a variety of sizes, because there would be small little pebble-like rubble, there would be big chunks, there would be medium-sized rocks, all different sizes, right? When something collapses, different sizes of brick, different sizes of rock. So I'll probably use like a texture of some kind, and I can just take rock. There should be some rocks. I'll just go ahead and do this real quick to make sure it's there. Let's go back to Classical Empire. This one right here, small rocks. Let's use this. Let's get the scale right. I think that looks small enough with a mixture of larger and smaller ones. Let's then obviously get it desaturated, get the brightness down, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paint on this foreground layer at the highest opacity and just kind of paint in those rocks. There we go. In fact, they're a little too dark. They're hard to notice because of the contrast. So let's just bring up the brightness a little bit. There we go. And now it just makes much more sense here. You have that small debris, the transition between large debris and small debris is there. It explains where the wall collapsed, and it kind of comes together nicely. So then from there, we can start populating it with things, right? And the Classical Empire pack has some great stuff. Like, I believe there's like these racks of pots. This is a storage room. So you with things like scaffolding, which we're not going to use as scaffolding. Instead, we'll use it maybe as shelving. So, and what I'll do is I'll make sure my scale is correct by go ahead and looking for this same one. I'm going to scale it. I could also just select it like this, copy and paste it. There we go. That looks a little bit better. It's about the same scale. Looks about right. There it is. Let's go ahead and put it up against this wall right here, because I already have one facing against that wall. So maybe we'll put two of them, one here, one like this. And I can always just move my rocks around like this. We'll just move the rocks around over here. That looks good. One here. That looks good. We'll put it up against that wall. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and then we'll also put some smaller ones as well. Notice that there are some really short ones, like these little tiny ones. Those are perfect. Let's go ahead and place those. Just copy and paste those a couple against the wall here like this. That looks good. And then we'll all want to throw in, oh, thank you, by the way, first time chatter. We're also going to want to throw in some like crates, barrels, all of those things work out quite well. I'm going to go ahead and bring the brightness down on it a little bit. And I can put some crates and stuff on top, like maybe one up on top there. Oops, we got to make sure we go up another layer. There we go. That looks good. A little too dark. Let's bring the brightness up just a little bit more. That looks good. And I can go and place one on the ground here. I can place one right here like this on that layer. I can place a couple more on the ground, maybe one right there. I can also go and throw in maybe a chest of some kind. Let's go ahead and place that maybe right up against the scaffolding here or these shelves. So I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down a little bit. Sorry, I gotta go over here. There we go. There we have that chest there. There should be some other things, like we could throw in some, I think I'll save the pots and stuff for the wine cellar. That kind of makes sense, right? Wine, you have these pots where you can put the wine in. So let's save that for that. Why don't we go back to just Fantasy Regional itself and just type in crate. And you'll notice there's some regular crates and barrels here. This ore Looks good. Let's use that. I might have to rescale or resize or bring the brightness down a little bit. Let's bring the scale down so the boxes match around the same size. Let's go ahead and place that one right in front there. Ooh, it's a little on the dark side. Let's bring that brightness back up. Right about there looks good. And then I'll put a couple of these crates, maybe put one right there. That looks good. And so this room is starting to like come together, right? And maybe this chest right here is what the players need to get to. Maybe that chest. So maybe you could have an encounter that takes place in here. Maybe you've got some thieves or some kind of squatters in here that are kind of sleeping inside of this storage room because it's where the supplies are. So that's where they're staying, right? They're utilizing the supplies of that storage to live there. And maybe they'll die to defend that stuff. Maybe there's something in the chest. There's a key that you need to get that maybe opens up to the final room, or maybe it activates something in the boss room that's going to take place right here. So a storage room can have lots of purposes. And you notice that there's a lot of scaffolding, there's a lot of rocks, there's a lot of things that your players can interact with. That's what makes a great dynamic combat, right? Your players can trip enemies over rocks. They can pick a rock up and bash someone's head in it. They can they can climb up the ladder and then push the ladder when an enemy is coming up to go after them. They can take one of the crates at the top here, throw it down at an enemy. So what makes for great encounters is making sure that your players can interact with the environment. They can use the environment to their advantage. They can use objects within the room they can use for defensive purposes, attacking, tripping, snagging, whatever it might be. Adding in these elements is going to make your combat much more interesting outside of just each person taking turns whacking at each other. What makes dynamic combat is a dynamic level or a dynamic board with all the interesting things that your players can interact with. Always super important to factor that in. So I think overall this room looks pretty good. I had mentioned that there were some thieves that were staying in this room. So why don't we add that part in by maybe putting in like a campfire of some kind? We'll put a campfire here. I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down just a little bit on that. Oopsie, didn't mean to rotate it. Like that. And we'll go ahead and put a campfire just right there. Actually, I think it's a little too dark. Let's just go with 100%. That's fine. I think right there looks good. And then I'm going to go to my lighting layer. And you'll notice this is where my lighting is. And I'll go ahead and just steal a couple of these lights. Let's take this warm light and just place it right on top of the flame right there. And then we'll take this bigger round yellow light and I'll bring the opacity down and just place that right there like that. And now you have some nice lighting in this room here. So when your players go in here, they might see maybe what might attract them to seeing this room is as they're walking around here, they notice a light glimmering around this hallway right here, and that attracts them into this room. Just know that when you are making rooms, and especially if they're away from the central chamber, or if there's some slight backtracking, or the players might miss it, you always want to throw in some kind of breadcrumbs to encourage your players to go to that room. So this light source right here is going to show some light. Maybe you have a VTT and maybe there's some light kind of coming right here like this. They'll be able to notice that light and that will encourage them to go and investigate seeing that light. You always, if there's something important in that room, like an NPC that continues the narrative, or maybe there's an object they need in that room, you need to encourage them and show them like, hey, I want you to go to this room to pick up this item, talk to this NPC, or whatever. Otherwise, you're going to have to, if they skip that room altogether, you'll have to shuffle those events, that NPC or whatever it might be, into another room. Okay, so to give yourself less work and to make sure that doesn't happen, that they follow through with an area that you're hoping they might go in, you know how it is with players. They're going to do whatever they want, but you can encourage them. You can entice them. We could put a trail of blood that could lead into here. We could put a whole bunch of things that might encourage the players to go and investigate that area. Okay, I think overall this room looks pretty good. We've added in all the little details. I've added in lighting. The last thing we could probably put in is shadows, but we'll save that for later. Let's go into maybe a different room. Hey, Lord Hobby. Glad that you're here, by the way. I'm glad that you like it. Okay, let's go to another room. So you kind of saw from beginning to end. Let's go turn on my text. Where am I at for time here? Oh, tons of time. We finished storage room. I'm happy about that. Looks good. There's another storage room. Let's not do that one. Why don't we do the boss room? This is kind of a larger room. So then why don't we kind of populate it with stuff? So I'll go ahead and turn my text back off. And again, I'm going to try to use much of the art from the classical empire style as possible. So let's go with classical empires. I see some nice platforms right here. Why don't we create a sense of depth? Like this room is more than just a flat room. Maybe there's a way that we can create a sense of depth somehow. Why don't we take the crater like this, and maybe some kind of creature came out of this crater or this hole. Maybe it's where the main monster is. Let's try pit instead of crater. That might be a little bit more interesting. Does that one work? Let's try this one. I think overall this one looks pretty good. It creates, they'll bring the scale up a little bit. It does seem to fit in overall. Let's get this, the scale right. Might have to do this a little bit more. And then also I might want to consider painting a more natural texture there as well. So I could consider using this natural texture here. I'll make sure it's set to foreground layer, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint in that natural texturing like this. And then now I can go in with this, and I can change that blend mode to luminosity. Oops, blend mode, luminosity, that looks good. A little bright, so let's maybe bring the brightness down. There we go. Okay, and the pit seems to be matching a little bit more in there. Let's maybe scale it a little bit more this way. Just want to make sure that it's large enough to where players can walk on these little ridges right here along the edge here. They can walk along these ridges and things like that. I want to make sure that players can get to that. So let's do that. Let's maybe put it up against the wall here. That looks good. Let's keep going a little bit more up more. Just want to make sure there's a lot of room for players to be able to maneuver on these ridges here. Okay, that looks good. All right, we got our main stamp there, so the room's starting to get taken up. Why don't we add some elements to make it a little bit more interesting, like some pillars? I'll go ahead and take these pillars here. And I'll go and bring the brightness down on them a little bit. I'm just going to line them. Oopsie, I'm set to random rotate, my mistake. There we go. Let's turn that random and the rotate off. There we go, that looks better. I'm just gonna go and place them like this until I've come to a point where these begin to get in the way. So right about there looks good. Right about there looks okay. In fact, what I'll do is I'll show you a cool trick here. You'll like this. Let's go ahead and put all these pillars there real quick. Let's bring the brightness down. And then what I'll do is I'll show you an interesting trick you might like. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. I'm gonna make another object layer. I'm going to select this object layer that I've already got the objects on, so it'll be right above this layer. I'm going to go to add a layer, object layer, and I'm going to call these cutoffs. And what I'll do is I'll take those same pillars right here. I'll take these same pillars, and now I'm going to place them like this. Make sure that I got them all there. That looks good. Oops. Objects. I wonder why that is cut off there. That's interesting. You know what? Let's go ahead and refresh the page real quick, or do a recovery. It's possible. I might have to fix that real quick. Ooh, maybe I put it on lighting. I think that's the problem that I did. Yeah, I did put it on lighting. There they are. I'll go ahead and copy paste those. I'll delete them, and I'll go and put them back on objects. This is why you got to be careful about your layers there. My mistake. There we go. Cool. That explains that. Bring the brightness up. Bring the contrast down just a little bit. That looks good. Okay. Okay, that looks good. Now that trick I was talking about with these cutoffs, you can go to add a mask, and there's this mask layer right here. And I can go in, and I can turn off my, go to a hard brush right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint off like this. I'm going to go ahead and remove these pillars where you see that little line right there on the pillar it is. So I'll go ahead and hide that like this. That looks good. I'll do this next one as well. And what I'll also do is I'll go ahead and turn off, because it's so dark, I'll turn off my darkness. There we go. So that way it's not so dark. See what it looks like when I have the shadows off. So it makes it a little bit easier to see. And then from here, I'll have to create another object layer. So I'll go to add another object layer, and I'm gonna go ahead, object layer, I'm gonna call it top the pillars. There we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take a circle. I'm gonna have no stroke, no need to have a merge on, go fill, circle, and I'm gonna go like this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and place a circular piece just like this, and I'm gonna go ahead and I can rescale it if it's too big. See, it's a little too big. And then I'm just gonna copy and paste those and put them right on top. And now you have these cutoff pillars, and these cutoff pillars really add a lot to the map, right? Because it looks really odd when you just have a black line here. Adding these pillars really breaks up that edge, makes it a little bit more interesting. I'm just gonna go ahead and just keep adding more of these. Copy, paste. There we go. There we go. That looks good. So now I have those pillars there. Let's go ahead and add in a couple more. Let me go back to cutoff here. I'm just going to copy and paste. I see another section right here. That looks good. And I'll go back to cutoffs with layer mask and just do the exact same thing I just did. Delete these. There we go. And then I can just go ahead back to tops of pillars and just copy and paste this. Put it on just like this. There you go. And then when you take a step back, you can see the difference that makes, right? Now those pillars are not cutting off the visibility of your player's movement, right? We're not playing a video game where a pillar is going to disappear when your player's token touches the pillar, right? It's VTT. So cutting off those pillars will make it look a little bit more interesting and look better than having them just be right on top of the pillar when you're using your VTT or you're playing on your tabletop. So cutoffs like this are really helpful. I'm going to try to be mindful and remember to go back to objects. And what I can do from here is I can do all kinds of things to make this more interesting. Maybe I want to put like some flame. Maybe there's a volcano or a lava. Maybe there's some interesting purple like thing that like water or a spring that's inside of that pit right there. So why don't we fill that pit in with some kind of texture? And what I'll do is I'll go back over to the shape tool. I'm going to use my pen. You can also use free draw, whichever one is easier for you. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use free draw because I'm going to use my pen. If you don't have a pen for your computer, then I recommend you use the pen function here, because the free draw to me works best when you have a pen and not a mouse. This is just my opinion, okay? I'm going to go ahead and choose a fill texture. So I'll go over to this little lines right here in the square. I'm going to pick a texture. I'm going to go to Fantasy Battle Maps, and I'm going to choose like lava because I kind of like the lava textures, but I'm going to make it unique. Instead of it being like a lava color like this orange, yellow, reds, I'll change that color to maybe like a purple or like a green to make it more interesting, right? So I'll change that. I'm going to change the scale so I can see all the artifacts inside of it. And then I'll go ahead and take my pen like this, and I'm just going to go along the edge like this. I'm going to stop right there, go to add. And now I have this kind of like purple or this kind of green like texture. Why don't we make it a little bit darker? That looks good. I can change the scale. Maybe I want it to look like that. Maybe I don't like the green. What'd be helpful is to turn on the darkness to see what it looks like. I think that looks pretty good. We could change things up. Maybe you want to change the color. You don't like that green color. Maybe you prefer the purple. I think that works fine too. You could add a stroke as well. I would maybe change it to like a purple color that somewhat matches that same color there. So maybe this like pinkish like color. turning off, make sure the shadows are off, bring the size down a little bit. You do that. And then from there, there's all these different things that we can do with this too. Like maybe we want to add some bubbles. I don't even like entirely how it kind of turned out. I might want to even consider moving it a little bit more this way, or I can even move it like this way if I feel like this looks a little better. I could do that too. It's up to you, whichever one you think works better. But yeah, you could totally add bubbles to that. Sometimes when you don't have a stamp that you need in the style that you're using, you can totally use other styles. Like Fantasy Battle Maps has some bubbles that we have. We could use those. These ones would work fine. Or you could also use the effects from Fantasy Regional. I believe there's a bubble there as well. So you could do that one too. It's up to you. I think I actually like the Fantasy Regional stuff better, so let's use it. And if I want, I could add some bubbles in here. And what I can do here is I'll use cutoffs and I'll place a couple bubbles like on the water so I can then paint off the bottom of the bubble so it looks like it's coming out of the water itself. And then I'll vary up my sizes. So I want different sizes, something big, small, and then maybe a couple kind of coming up like this, some smaller ones kind of going up like this and like that. Then I can go back to my layer mask over here and I'll just go ahead and paint off these corners here to kind of make it look like the bubble is actually coming out of the water. Like this. There we go. That looks better. Let's go here. There. Let's go here. There we go. And so it kind of looks like the bubbles are kind of coming more out of the water. That looks a little better. Now you have a whole cut off layer. This way you can just paint off the things that you want to cut off. And of course, that doesn't entirely look exactly the way I want it. So maybe we can take a light source and I'll go ahead and put it on the lighting layer. I'll place it right on top. Of course, I don't want to use that yellow color. Why don't I change the hue to get that more purple color? And maybe I don't like the way that that looks, so I can always change the blend mode. Some fun blend modes are like darken is fun, multiply can be fun, color burn can be fun. Like I like this color burn right here. This really kind of creates this kind of eerie kind of feel to it. I can copy and paste that again, and then just maybe take another layer. Maybe we can play with color adjustments and play with things here. We could do difference. Oh, that looks kind of cool. I could play around with hard light. Ooh, I like that. Maybe we can use that hard light. Have that down at the bottom there. Let's push this down a layer. There we go. Like this. I'll rotate it so the light fits right in there like that. That looks good. Let's go back to our cutoffs and I'll take all these bubbles. Now I'm going to bump up the brightness a little bit because they're a little hard to see. But by bumping up that brightness, I can really get those bubbles to pop out more. Maybe even bump up the contrast a little bit. There we go. Now those bubbles pop out a lot more. There's a whole bunch of things that we can add too. There's a bunch of cool effects that were added with 2.0. So why don't we play with those? Right here, you'll see a little new tag where it says effects. Look at all these cool different effects that we could use to play with it. Like maybe we want to have like an eerie kind of light that's kind of coming out of it like this. And maybe I'll copy and paste this and I can leave it on cutoffs. It's okay. Let's put that like right there. I can change that hue so it's more of a purple, more of a pink color. I can put it like this. Maybe I want to put it like this. Maybe I don't like that at all. Let me take a step back. You can see that doesn't look too bad. Maybe I can make a bunch of those. Just copy and paste a bunch of those. Make some smaller ones. Copy and paste another one. Make it a different size. Copy and paste and maybe add some small ones. Copy and paste. And now you kind of have this kind of eerie kind of like pit with lights coming out of it and bubbles. And then maybe this is where like the boss comes out of. Maybe they're one of those, a boss that like regenerates their health. Maybe the objective is to get your players to cordon off. Maybe they have to blow off. Maybe we can put a cannon in here somewhere. Maybe they have to blow off the ceiling so that all the rocks from the ceiling will fall into the bubble. And in that way, that final boss can't keep going into that Lazarus pit thing there to bring back their health. So you could do things like that. Maybe we could like add in like a cannon in here, something like a hand cannon or something that they can blow at the ceiling and then cover. It will fall into that pit. And that beast, that creature will no longer, that boss will no longer be able to heal themselves. So there's that. Of course, your players don't have to go that route, but I've noticed that players always enjoy it when you when you throw in cannons. They're a big fan of that. Yeah, I think it looks super creepy. I think there's some other things we might want to add too that might be nice. Like we could add in these sparks and embers here. We would just change that hue to bit that color we want. Let's just do that. And I'll just kind of place a bunch like this that kind of just makes it look like they're going up. Let me go ahead and select all of those in the set, and we'll just take them up a layer. There we go. And this will kind of add to it, just adding a little bit of spark, adding those little sparkles and stuff. Should be a nice little touch. Looks cool. Put one up here like that. There we go. That just adds that final touch, just adding in those nice sparks. So now you have this very creepy area that your players can interact with. What I do is I will throw in that cannon. Now, I don't think there are any cannons in this style, but there is in fantasy battle maps. And the way that I would recommend doing this is... Ooh, here we go. 1 second. I think I spelled cannon wrong. Maybe it's 2 N's. Yeah, it is. There should be a cannon where it's just... Let me go expand all assets real quick. Here, there should be one where there's just... Oh, you know what? Here's a broken cannon. Is this already been released? Just want to make sure that this has been released. Battlefield. I think it has been. Maybe your players have to repair this cannon right here. And so maybe I'll put it in a different room and the players have to push it out of the room over to here to get it to work. So I'll go ahead and place this cannon right here in this object over here. Players will have to fix that cannon and then have to wheel it out before they can attack that boss there. So we'll put that somewhere where it's not too close to the boss, so that way they can find it first. And if they have to, they're fighting and they have to escape and then find the cannon, repair it. And the boss, I'll just, normally I would have the boss just not go, he wouldn't have the boss not stray too far away from the pit, because if that boss gets pinned in one of those rooms without getting to escape to the pit, and they can die. So that will allow time for your players to fix the cannon in that room there. Okay, that looks good. Bring the brightness down. Okay, that looks good. Some other things I'll do is I might want to have like a pillar fallen down. So I'll put a pillar that fell down like this. I think that looks good. Just that way it just breaks it up. See, I have one pillar fallen down and these other ones are up like this. That just makes it more interesting. And then some other things I might want to consider is because there's a giant hole here, where's all the rubble? Where's all the rock that was dug? How did that get there? So what I'll do is I'll use that same strategy that I used here. I'm just going to go ahead and take that rubble from this room right here. And I'll just place that same rubble in here in certain areas inside where this pit is. And this will also allow a place for players to interact with. So they can jump on top of the rock, hide behind it to get cover. If the creature attacks them, they can use it to throw it at the creature. Maybe there's enough rock there for them to just fill it in the hole. I don't know, right? So we'll put a bunch of rock like this. Let's go ahead and turn that. I think there's some kind of shadow there. We'll go ahead and turn that off. Undo. There we go. Custom shadow. We'll turn that to none. There we go. And I'll just go ahead and place a bunch of this rock like over here like this. Maybe a bunch over here like this. Let's put a bunch over here on this ledge. Over here like this. Some over here. Maybe some kind of just leading away from the area here like this. There we go. That looks good. Let's put some over here. Go. And I'll change up my size, right? So I'll put some smaller ones in there just to change up my variety. There we go. That looks good. You might not be able to get this one done today, and that's okay. Still, we're making good time. Let's go ahead and break that up. There we go. And then I'll use that same texture I did before. Here we go. Go to foreground layer. And then I do believe these are where those little stones are. That's perfect. And I'll just go ahead and paint those in here like this. They're a little on the bright side. Let's go ahead and bring, because the stones are out of contrast here. So why don't we Actually, you know what? I think it's okay. Let's actually just take those stones and make them a little bit darker. That'll be the best approach. So I'll bring the brightness down. There we go. There we go. Now the stones are more this dark color. Perfect. There we go. Just want to make sure that I get all the stones in there. That looks good. Okay. There we go. Let's just take a step back and look at it. And I'll just zoom in. Often what I'll do when I finish a room is I'll just walk around and just to see that there's anything I missed, to make sure that there's, oh, that might look good here. Oh, that doesn't look good. I removed that. So I'm just walking around as if I was my players. They're walking around. They're exploring things. They're looking at things. You know what would look good here is maybe some blood of some kind, like to show that maybe the creature, maybe adventurers came down and attacked it previously. So we could put corpses on the ground. We could put some blood on the ground. All of those things might work well with this room. So let's just type in blood. What I'll do is I'll click Inkarnate. That means I'll go look for every single stamp in the catalog across all styles when I click that. And then I'm going to type in blood. And I'm not always a fan of the more pooly like blood here. So instead I'll kind of use this blood from the watercolor battle map styles. It works just as fine from the battle maps, but I think this just works a little bit better. Personally, I kind of like it more. And I'll just go ahead and place the blood, make it look like maybe the creature came down, was injured, and then went down into the pit. And then I can change the color to, let's do some, maybe some complementary colors, like maybe a green color might work well. Let's maybe bring that saturation up. I'll bring the brightness up a little bit so I can really see that green. Make sure I can really get that hue, get that brightness up. There we go. Now you can really see that green color. And that green works well with pink, works well with red. Pink is a derivative of red. It's just adding more white or a lighter color to it to give it that pink, more like color. So green will complement well with pink or red. So let's go with that. And I'll just go ahead and just add blood here and there where I see fit, like maybe the player, maybe putting the blood like right here so that players know there's something menacing over here. Let's go to this one. I think let's do this one right here, a smack there. And then what we'll also do then is I'll take one of the more splatter ones and I'll kind of just place some splatter. In fact, I'll go ahead and take that stamp, turn off randomize and turn on random rotate. And then that way I can use that same stamp and kind of create that speckle of blood like this. And then this is to do some storytelling. It's to let your players know, like, hey, this creature takes more damage when you can trick them to go into another room. And that way you can kind of bottleneck them when they try to get out. You can do more damage that way. This kind of does some environmental storytelling. If you want to know where the filter tool is, right over here. You notice how you don't see the filter tool on that left panel? Go to Add Layer, Filter Layer, boom. And then here are your filters, okay? It's not complex, pretty easy stuff. It's just on this other side now, because it's helpful for you to want to be able to move your filters to whatever layer you want. So if I add a filter layer, let's say I want to add clarity filter, I can take that filter and I can click, hold, and drag and just place it wherever I want to add it, right? So super easy. And then if you want to change the filter, you would simply just click the filter like this, and then you'll see the filters and the options kind of pop up there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I'm not going to use that filter. But I'll go ahead and just delete, remove layer, and now that filter is gone. So filters, not hard to find. They're just right there in that right panel under Add Layer. They're no longer in the left toolbar there. Okay, so like I was saying, the blood is, again, like environmental storytelling, kind of giving a hint to your players, a strategy to beat this creature here, okay? I think overall this looks pretty good. We could add in a couple more things if we wanted to make it interesting. If you ever are in a room and you have no idea what else to populate it with, crates, barrels, pots, all of those things work just fine. They work just great. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's go back to Fantasy Regional. I'll open that up. And then I do believe there are some crates and barrels over here that I had. So why don't I just use these? So I'll go ahead and place these. Oops, it looks like it saved the information from the last stamp there. There we go. Oops, a little on the dark side there. Let's bring that brightness up a little bit. Oop, is it set to the wrong blend mode? Yes, it is. There we go, normal. Looks like it saved all the information from the last thing there. How fascinating. Okay. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste it. Let's go ahead and put some there. Let's take a barrel and a crate or something and put it over there like this. Notice how I want them to overlap the base of that wall right there. Overlap is a great way to show depth, so I'll overlap that. That looks good. Maybe I want to type in crate, and you'll see there's all these different crates right here that you can add in here. That'll work out fine. I'll turn random rotate off. Just make sure that all my settings are right. Let's go ahead and change the brightness just a little bit. And I can put like maybe a crate there. Let's maybe put some over here on this side, something that your players can kind of interact with. If they want to throw the crates at a creature, or maybe little spawns that are coming out of it. Oh, some sarcophagi that will open when the PCs interfere with the magic. I love all of that stuff. That's awesome. Like you could always, one thing that it's always nice to do is, which I think is fun, is to add minions. What I'll do is if, let's say the creature can't fit, let's say that you decide to where the creature can't follow you into these hallways right here. Maybe it's too small. They can't fit in there. Or maybe they won't go that way because remember they're trying to avoid these tighter spaces so they don't get cornered. One thing that you can do, hold on one second, I just kind of noticed some mistakes I want to fix here. One thing you can do is throw in minions. And what I'll do is, let's say that when the creature gets injured and they start heading back towards the pit, maybe there are some sarcophagi, maybe some pits on the ground, or maybe a crypt or something, where ghost, ghouls, and some kind of minion of some kind comes out and then starts to try to protect the creature. Normally I'll stat them really low stats. They're super easy to kill, maybe like 2 or 3 hits and they're dead. They don't do a lot of damage themselves, but it makes the battle more interesting. So your players are still involved with combat even when they're trying to do something else. Like maybe 2 players are trying to assemble the cannon, while the other players are trying to fight the monsters and defend those players from assembling the cannon so that they can finally go over and blast the ceiling over the pit, right? So minions are always a great touch. So that was a great suggestion by Andrew in the chat there. Love that idea. Let's go ahead and throw in some stuff like that. Things you could throw in is like maybe a chasm. A chasm of some kind might not be a bad idea. Like I can throw in like a chasm over here somewhere. Like let's maybe put a chasm there. And then I can maybe put another chasm or crack like maybe over here like this. And I'll select those both. Change the blend mode to luminosity. And then just do what I normally do. I got to bring the contrast down, the brightness down. Bring the brightness down just a little bit more. There we go. That looks good. And just to show that the creature is also kind of coming from that pit there and from these little areas, I'll go ahead and take, oopsie, not that one. I'll go ahead and take that same kind of lighting and kind of just place it. Actually, I think I like the other one better. Let's use this one instead. Copy, paste. And I'll just go put that like right over the pit like this, just to kind of signify that, hey, little creatures come out of that as well. There we go. So now minions can come out and they can defend their lord and liege from your players. So kind of helpful there. Want to make sure that it's small enough to where the light is just inside the pit itself. There we go. Same thing here. It's kind of sticking out a little bit, so I'll kind of rotate it, try to fit right in the pit there. That looks good. You could even take some of these little lighting pieces. You can even put one like copy and paste and just put one over like this if you want as well, just to kind of show that, hey, little minions come out of that. You can do that too. There you go. All right, where are we at for time? Oh, it's been 1 hour. Let's just take a step back and what we've kind of accomplished in this 1 hour. We kind of made this more natural room here by following a method of just putting the biggest stamps first. That method worked out fairly well. And then we did a method of just starting from beginning to end. We put in the back walls, we put in the rubble to explain the collapsed wall sections. We added in the larger stamps like the scaffolding, which is actually acting as shelves for storage. Then we added in all the little details like crates, barrels, rocks, and the environmental storytelling of the maybe the bandits or whatever lives inside of here. Maybe they're hiding from this creature right here, hiding in there. Maybe the creature is afraid of regular light, so that fire kind of keeps them protected, but they're kind of trapped in here. So maybe they'll try to kill you and try to take your stuff. Maybe they'll join up with you. Who knows, right? That's up to you. Would I do the same thing, same technique on world maps? Absolutely, yeah. I generally use my techniques across all styles where it's applicable. So, which technique do you mean exactly, by the way? Broken British vet. Let me know in that chat when you have that. Okay, let's just take a step back again. I'm going to look at it. We did that storage room. We also did this boss room. So we got a lot done, actually. We still have this main bulk of this room here. Let me go to text and just look at it. We've got weapons, storage, the boss room. I think what we'll end up doing is we'll call it good, and then we'll work on this another month. I've already got next month's stream schedule up. We're doing some different things than I normally do for next month, so that will be kind of fun. But I think we'll call it good here. We covered a lot of techniques already. Oh, you know what? Let's do that last thing real quick that I can kind of show you. I want to show you how I do the lighting thing. There's a lot of different ways to do shadows in Inkarnate. One method is to use shape tool. Some method is to use like a brush layer on the very top of all the stamps with a different object with a blend mode. Some people use a filter layer with a mask layer to make their shadows. There's so many different ways. So let me just show you the way that I did shadows on this one. So you'll notice that there's that darkness right here. And you notice how I was able to erase some of that dark spot right over there where those flames are right there. Okay, well, I want to do that same thing right here. So if I go up to darkness, you notice that I have a shape that covers the entire canvas, right? And I'll make sure that this is set to my favorites. So I'll favorite that real quick. I go to my favorites. I then have this, I want to make sure it's set to the right layer. This is set to layer 5. So I'll make sure that I select this. I'll go to my favorites here. It's set to layer 5. There we go. I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to go to subtract. And then right where my lighting is, I'll go ahead like this and just kind of delete some of that lighting. So I'll delete here as well. See, I'm deleting some of that. And now you'll have some of your shadows remains because I'm covering the whole thing with shadows and then just erasing the parts where I want there to be light. So kind of a fun little trick that you can kind of do there.